You know that feeling when you are working twice as hard, waiting for someone to finally say, "You're ready?" And yet, the moment never comes. The truth is, sometimes the system isn't broken. It's just not built for you. Now, today on this episode of the BizBlend podcast with your host Sana, we are getting real about how to land senior leadership roles not by waiting to be quote unquote seen, but by showing up differently. Listeners, my guest knows this firsthand. He has led teams at Google, Meta, DoorDash, and Calibrate after learning that performance alone doesn't earn you promotion. Perception does. Now, through his company, Career Alchemy Labs, he helps tech leaders build that confidence, communication, and clarity to get the roles they deserve without pretending to be someone they're not. So, let's unpack it on how do you lead with authenticity and still win in a system that rewards visibility over virtue. So, listeners, meet my incredible guest, Keith Anderson. So, Keith, welcome to this show, and I'm really, really excited for this one.
Hi, thank you so much, Sana. I'm really excited to be here.
Super, super. So, um, Keith, while doing the intro, a particular line, it really, really kind of, piqued my interest into it. And somehow it kind of contradicts to what I usually believe. Could be because of that. Performance alone doesn't help you win, perception does. And now, when we talk about perception, many a times, like mentors, not mentors, but colleagues or peers would say that you have to be visible, you have to kind of have that, maybe if you are going to network or if you're going to be seen during meetings and give those ideas, and then you will be directly up for this promotion slate. So you talk about how promotions, especially in tech, run on perception, not fairness. So I'm really, really interested to know, like, how does someone build that perception? What do you mean by perception, first of all?
Yeah, I was gonna say, talking about that term perception and then also performance you mentioned, um, you know, uh, in the job market and in the corporate setting in particular, one
Mm.
key thing you see people doing, like on their resume, is putting in tons of metrics about what they've achieved, right? And how essentially how great they are, but the fact of the matter is when everyone is doing something, everyone is showing their performance and their metrics and speaking about themselves in such uh, uh, high ways all the time, you just don't stand out of the crowd, right? So perception starts, or setting a good perception for people is by first identifying like who you uniquely are within the leadership context, right? If you don't have this, yeah, you can have all the performance metrics that you want, but if you can't really speak to who you are and how you are a differentiating force, then you're just like any other executive out there, right? So understanding who your authentic self is in the business setting and making sure that on your LinkedIn, in your resume, in every conversation you have, you're showing up as that unique self that you are. And on top of that, in terms of shaping perception, you need to be like, you can't make assumptions that everyone will naturally just see these things about you and put two and two together. You need to be very explicit and connect the dots for people about who you are, what your unique value is, and then going back to performance, then show the proof through performance, right? And talk about that, how that supports who you are and then what you've done, right? But um, going back to what we were saying about performance is it's important, right?
Mhm.
It's the proof though, right? But you can't just show proof unless we know what we're proving and who we are. Otherwise, we just blend into the crowd.
Yeah, that absolutely makes sense, Keith. And as you mentioned, like for LinkedIn or resume, um, before we come to the metrics and performance, we have to understand who we uniquely are. So, how do we do that? Is it through like anecdotes or case studies or just writing adjectives that I am a strategic leader with something like practicing emotional intelligence or empathy. I'm a people's person, something like that. Like how would you
Mm.
suggest?
Yeah, yeah, that's a great question. So, Y- yes, I mean, you're right with sharing stories and case studies and all of that. But, going back to what we were talking about earlier in terms of showing metrics is kind of in that same vein of, this is what you show, right? And like these are pieces of evidence if you can see it. But essentially, like what I'm talking about is identifying the main idea. Now, there are things like you just said, like I'm a strategic leader, I'm an empathetic leader, and that's a good start, right? Where you're starting to narrow down your leadership and your leadership style. But even going like the next layer down, where you even have like key phrases that you use and again and again and again, and then you become known for them. So, for example, one example that I was working with a client on recently is, he's a director of engineering and he's looking to move into a VP of engineering role. And he was having a very difficult time breaking through that perception that he was just an executor and he was leading teams of like software developers that were just focused on execution. So, he needed to be seen as that strategic leader. So, even just what I talked about just now, like we shaped his language to talk about where while his focus is on engineering, his superpower really is about being able to connect the dots with how engineering supports very different sides of the business that you don't necessarily think of in terms of engineering, namely sales, marketing, uh, like even operations, like physical operations and like a hardware setting, um, eh, or supply chain setting. These are like atypical things, right? That like once we shape what that message is, then you're able to show all the evidence. But once like you need to have that unique message that's not only I'm a strategic leader or I'm an empathetic leader. I mean, again, that's a good start, but then go that level deeper within that initial messaging and then show impact. Does that make sense?
It does, Keith. You know what I believe is, and I also have another question related to that. But before that, I think um, if I would be in that situation, I would probably first start, from this particular exercise that what would I do if I'm put in a leadership position? What would I do if I'm handling a department or a team, let's say engineering, at a broader level, more, towards more from the perspective of what kind of strategies, which will be directly connected to what experiences I've had, what kind of decisions I individually took, what kind of problems I solved, and what insights I got. Something like that. So maybe I'll try to kind of, go backwards,
Is
starting with the imagination, the situations, the observations, and then connecting with the metrics and the output and the proof and all that.
Yeah, exactly. And, even deepening that a bit more, and this is what I work with my clients on, identifying that in a business setting, yes, but then also even like key moments from your childhood that you remember or from your past, right? And they don't even need to be related to business or anything. But at the end of the day, I would say, like in either a business setting or in your personal life, when there have been obstacles that you faced, when things haven't gone the way you wanted, or you have to navigate problems, that's usually where that superpower kicks in, right? It's not when everything's going great, you're riding the wave. It's those difficult moments that shape who you are and give you the breadcrumbs of what that initial messaging looks like. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. 500,000%. Because gosh, so many parallels, Keith. Like, this is something I've learned that, like, I've observed through conversations through, different, CEOs, like in any capacity, any degree of, any, however small or big their company is. Um, they really talk about examples. Let's say they are a parent. They really connect. They drive. They draw parallels from their parenting experiences, and
Mm.
that's exactly what makes the business side, the professional side, human as well. Because people would say that always keep your personal and professional life completely separate. But I think there are so many situations here which are interconnected, and there are so many um, moments or observations which can be applicable in both the ways, on both the ends.
Exactly. Right. I mean, if you think about it, like our life is our life, and that includes work, it includes your family, it includes everything, right? So, all of the moments that you've had in your life really shape who you are. And, it's interesting. And I'm curious your perspective of this. One thing that I tell my clients, and what I firmly believe, is that, um, these, how do I say this? Um, th- these moments of our life that aren't just in the business setting, those are things that help really shape um, who we are and what we're bringing to the table. And being able to share those personal stories when you're in these business meetings, and share not just the positives, but also the difficulties that you've had and how you overcome them, that's what makes you a strong leader, right? Not just, oh, Q3 business growth was that, like the general stuff, right? We're humans, and humans grow together through storytelling, right? And no matter if you're in the business setting, you're a leader, or anyone in life, or like 2 years old, it's such a core piece to our identity as human beings, that's essentially what makes a strong leader and someone that people follow, right? Because people resonate with your story or what you bring. So, yeah, I just kind of expanding on what you were saying. I think that there's so much in life that we need to bring to who our professional identity is, and it's not quite as separate as we think. But I would say some of the difference is your audience, right? So how you're talking about these past experiences in a business setting is very different than if you're telling like your best friend from childhood or things like that.
Exactly, exactly. And I was just, this example actually came in my mind, and this was the specific interview that I had given, I think, 2 years back, before letting go of my corporate life, and getting into this full time into podcasting. But, um, and I was, so this interview was an hour long, and I kind of, gave a whole like 15, 16 minutes long of my journey, my professional journey, like a story. And in that, I also tried to add in bit and pieces of my personal life, because many of the specific moments from that professional journey were kind of um, triggered or maybe caused due to specific personal situations in my life. So it
Mhm.
was very interesting. And that the interview was with my immediate, like, whom I was going to report to if I would have joined the company. But he said to me that when you go for the next round with the CEO, or I think it was with COO, so don't highlight much of your personal, moments in there. Try to stick to just the professional part. So, uh,
Mm.
how would you advise to, you know, frame or maybe put ahead with the right words or right tone? Like, let's say, if, any individual contributor is trying to look for a senior leadership position and is trying to blend that human side, which kind of translates into their leadership style. Like, how would you advise and begin with?
Yeah. So, to well, looking at that situation that you were in when you were interviewing, um, what I would recommend, I mean, I know this is after the fact, but for you or someone in a similar situation is, um, essentially we are all different people. We're all different leaders, but we're literally, there's 8 billion of us and we have all different personalities. So luckily, now that we have ChatGPT or other AI tools, what I do now is I take the person's LinkedIn profile, and then I work with the custom GPT I created to help identify a DISC score, which is kind of like a Myers-Briggs, or it's a like personality test that looks at their profile, oh, and also other news articles that are around this person, and I have it analyze kind of the personality of this person and the typical suggestions and ways that I could connect with them. So I that I always do that before I have high stakes meetings. Um, and with that, like because we're speaking in this case one on one with different people, you still need to be yourself, right? But it's a different audience, right? The COO sounds like he's very metrics, very, I don't know, maybe data driven, who knows? But with that, it's still incorporating your story, but maybe it's less about your like less about the details of your story, but maybe like a quick sentence of whatever that piece is from whatever part of your life, and then quickly get into the results, uh, that area of it, right? But essentially, like again, like we're still all very human. So whether we are, you some people really identify with that like strong storytelling piece, but then other people don't as much as they're, I guess you could say, very buttoned up. But I still believe, and I've seen this, that like it's still incorporating these things in whatever degree, depending on who you're talking to, that really sets the tone for what it's like working with you and what that would be like. I would also say some of this is my like my beliefs in who I am. I believe in an interview setting that we're interviewing that person um, just as much as they're interviewing us. So, like, if you get a vibe where you're sharing these things, and you're speaking to the intended target's tone, but they're not reciprocating, then that's also a sign for you to know, like, okay, maybe this wouldn't be the best environment for me, right? Or
Yeah.
maybe I can't thrive in that, right? So it doesn't always have to be like, which I think is a common misconception in interviews. I'm not saying that you had this, but just in general, that like, oh, we need to just impress the person that we're talking to, and we need them to see us as this great person. But it's really, interviews are just about alignment, really, and seeing if that energy between you and them is is compatible, right? Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But it's not just like you answer questions and then you either do well or you do badly, and then you answer another question, another question. That's not that's like an old fashioned approach that doesn't really empower you to to build that collaborative environment with the other person you're talking to. So I know that's a long answer, but I hope that resonates a bit. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think and that is why it is called interview. Yeah, and literally.
Right. Enter, right? Like enter between, you know? Yeah.
And before we wrap up, I I know we have a time constraint, but I think this is such an important point here because many of us, and once again, personally, I also have been a not victim, but I have kind of gone through that, dilemma that for someone who is not naturally comfortable with self promotion, Keith, can they start shaping perception without feeling fake?
Mm. Yeah, that's a great question. Uh, so yeah, it can feel very unnatural, right? When you are trying to promote yourself and put your best foot forward, you could say, but just doesn't feel like who you are, right? In terms of your personality and how you communicate. So what what I would recommend for you and folks listening is first, you do need to identify before you have a call, an interview, or creating your LinkedIn or whatever it is, you do need to identify what are those key achievements that really set you apart, right?
Mm.
Identify them first on like a piece of paper or something. And then if you don't naturally feel comfortable sharing those pieces, first of all, practice. Second of all, with those pieces that you do have there, um, if it, like a big piece of it is how strongly or how you communicate it, not just what you communicate, right? So with that, I highly encourage who's ever listening to focus on the approach you're taking, but a big piece of it is everything in the corporate environment or anything for that matter is usually not just yourself, it's with other people, right? So explain and include in there like these were the accomplishments, this was a success, and this is my part, but I couldn't have done it also without whatever whoever other people and roles are on there, and then bring in something about this, how, like this was such a great achievement, but I, it was through that teamwork or collaboration or whatever is unique to who you are as a person and how you communicate that is what also helped it make it happen. Because I see this a lot with people who are very like a collaborative mindset and someone who's like more of a team player. Um, so that's an approach I think can help you feel more confident and more in your own skin, where yes, you're still talking about the achievements, but you're also acknowledging the parts that other people played to help, to help you achieve that metric or help the team achieve that. So yeah, that's what I would suggest in general, right? Because um, you do need to say the accomplishments that you've done, but it needs to be in a way that feels authentic to you. And look at your past experiences where you did have to communicate this and you were showing this. What were those things that you did? Ask yourself, right? What were things that you wish you did better? How do you wish you did better? How do you wish people interpreted you more? Like, you reflect on the past experiences around that, and then even just play out with those past situations. Like, okay, I wonder if I had worded it like this or done something like this in that context, whatever that is, and then start exploring what your unique style is that you could bring to that new situation. Um, because things in life repeat. So, like, it's probably not the first time that you've had to talk about your accomplishments in some way. It might just have looked a little bit different before, but again, like it's not like a completely new thing for anyone, honestly. It might be in like high stakes meetings with the COO in a business setting, but you know, um, again, there's many other places in your life where that most likely had happened,
I agree. And that is on point, Nick. That is on point. Oh, great, great. So, if listeners to explore further, Keith, on this, because I think this is super, super crucial. If they would like to connect with you for further guidance, for sharing their thoughts and opinions on this, and also your resources, what would be the best medium?
Sure. So two pieces. You can follow me or connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm at linkedin.com/in/Keith and, which is KEITHAND. So follow me, like me. I post Monday through Friday. I post around leadership and being your authentic self within this space. And then also, if you're in this situation where you are interviewing and you are looking to land a senior role or even a promotion within a new company, then please join my community where these are things that we talk about. We have monthly meetups where we talk on Zoom call about how to solve and navigate where you are in your career. So that community, if you're interested, is at www.careeralchemylab.com/leader, LEADER. So, yeah, those are the two ways that can contact me, see more about me, or join the community as well too.
Superb, superb. So, listeners, I'll make sure to have all the links in the show notes for all of you. So, check out, connect with Keith, check out his community. And also, I absolutely loved this conversation, listeners, because this isn't just about climbing ladders. It is about reclaiming our identity. Because let's face it,
Mhm.
when your worth is tied to corporate validation, it is easy to lose sight of who you are. So, Keith, thank you so much for being the guiding light here. And thank you so much for your insights. Really, really means a lot.
Of course, of course. Thank you, Sana. It was so wonderful talking with you and all of the listeners here. Yes, thank you.
Super. And listeners, thanks for tuning in to BizBlend with your host, Sana, where business meets human truth. So I invite all of you to stay bold, stay grounded, and don't just blend in, redefine the blend. Thank you.